Yate. Welcome to the Native CDFI Network's weekly Friday call. Really excited this week. Another great week, another great set of guests and members to highlight. And so this week, we'll be joined by Don Sherman, who's the CEO of Native American Natural Foods, which makes a Tanka bar, and Cindy Mittlestadt, who is the manager for the Bristol Bay Development Fund out in Alaska. So really excited. And let's get this show on the road. Cool. So before we get down too far, here's an update of an overview of where we want to go today. As usual, we'll start off with some quick news that might color our conversation today around Native CDFIs and the challenges and the opportunities that we all face during COVID. And then we'll get into our featured guest and then our featured member, and then some announcements at the end. And as always, we want to keep this easy going. And if you have questions, type them in the chat box or even stop or raise your hand. But yeah, we want to make sure that we hear from our members and we're able to connect. So thanks for joining us on this Friday. It's a humid day in DC.
That's for sure, right?
Yeah. Hey, there you are, Don. Awesome. Cool. So really quickly, we'll go through the high level news. And if you have other pieces that you want to touch on, we'll feel free to jump in or shoot me a note afterwards. So this is another update on the Congress's COVID bill, a third round COVID bill. Senate Republicans released a draft bill yesterday afternoon, and unfortunately it did not have any CDFI fund provisions. I want to make sure that that was noted. We also wanted to flag a few of the sticking points just so you're aware. You've probably seen this in the news, but one of the biggest ones that would really impact Native CDFIs and our constituents is the $600 additional per week unemployment assistance that today's the start of the last week for that. And there's talk about cutting it to about 70% of prior income is what the proposal is. There's also wanted to flag the proposal does outline some streamlined loan forgiveness for small loan or small PPP loans under $150,000. And so that's promising. I think we've been pushing to ensure that most CDFIs, Native CDFIs, are able to get those loans won, but also I know a lot of our Native CDFIs work to ensure that their members were able to get a PPP. So that is looking promising. So cool. And we've been rejoined by our board chairman, Pete Upton. And now let's get to the fun stuff. So yeah, we're here to speak with Native American Natural Foods CEO, Don Sherman. And so Don, thanks for joining us. Don, we've been, I've watched the growth and the progress and the change that the Tanka bar has been making as far as Indian country and promoting Indian country entrepreneurs over the years. And we really appreciate you coming to join us. The story I have about Tanka bar is about 5 years ago, I was on vacation in Puerto Rico, and I was able to get a Tanka bar there in Puerto Rico. So we thought that what you all are doing is great. It's a great model for our members to look up to, and the place we want to take a lot of our small businesses. So Don, thanks for joining us. Can you tell us a little about yourself? Mute a couple.
That's all you have to do.
There we go. And remember, yeah, mute if you're not up. But yeah, can you tell us a bit about yourself, about Native American Natural Foods, and you've been doing a whole lot. Most recently, you completed a successful round of fundraising. So can you tell us about that too?
Right. Yep. Thank you, Jackson, and thank you everybody for giving me the opportunity to present to you. Some of you may know us or may not. So as we go through, we'll have a little Q&A at the end. But my name is Dawn Sherman. I'm the CEO of Native American Natural Foods, or the Tanka Bar, which you all, like I said, some of you may know, or all of you may know. And we were the original authentic meat and fruit bar that created the category. So next slide. And as we talk about our mission a little bit, our mission is to heal the people and our Mother Earth by building a company that innovates new food products based on the traditional values of Native American respect for all living things by living in balance with mind, body, and spirit. So that is our mission. Our actual goal, and what you'll see as I kind of talk about this investment and the ecosystem that we're creating, is returning the buffalo to the lands, lives, and economies of our people. So that is our overarching goal for all of our mission, our goal for Native American Natural Foods in Tanka. And next slide. So our story is we were created 13 years ago. We're a legendary legacy brand. As many know, we have a loyal following that's, social based and social mission. And the Tanka was actually created by two social entrepreneurs, Mark Tilson and Carlene Hunter, and on the Pine Ridge Reservation. And how that started was we had some producers with bison that did not have a market for it. And they came to them and said, hey, we need to get rid of our buffalo. What can we do? And Mark and Carlene had decided to come up with the idea of taking Wasna and turning it into and modernizing it into Tanka Bar, what you see today. So because we were using that sacred animal, the buffalo, we went to the community and they talked to over 900 community members, and what came out of it was the bar and the name Tanka. So that's where Tanka came from. Meaning, all encompassing, or the biggest idea ever. So that's where that actually came from. It was grassroots, started through the community in a need to address the things that we needed. As you all know, next slide, we'll talk about the investment and the opportunities of what's happened recently with Native American Natural Foods. And we just made that recent announcement of investment close. And this was a really, really great investment. The investors that have come to the table, really brave. That's, I want to call these investors that did invest in Tanka are a rare breed. They had the courage to invest in the Indian country, and we need more of them. So then the investment is only this first investment is only the first step in creating a regenerative ag food system that we want to do, and returning the buffalo to our people and creating that economy. One thing is if Native American Natural Foods and Tanka was funded all the way and we were on a level playing field with our competitors, imagine the impact that we could have with the buffalo, the grass, and the land as we're moving forward. So as we're looking at the opportunity, the investment not only gives us a place to reclaim as the innovator leader of traditional regenerative foods and getting back into that space and creating that momentum, by pushing that impact. So the whole goal is to drive Tanka large enough to drive this impact back into the communities and fulfill our goals. The three things that we had to address through this investment and creating this was, one thing is regenerative agriculture, is creating an economic model that brings this keystone species back to our grasslands. And having the indigenous knowledge and what we know, we're using holistic and traditional agriculture practices, and we want to return those back to save those grasslands and the soils and the animals and everything that's involved when you're returning bison back to the land. The other thing is lack of access to capital. I mean, we know that this is a systemic issue of bringing money into Indian country, and this has been a historic problem. So with this investment will help us to be more competitive and create that bridge and break that barrier down in the isolation so we can fulfill our opportunities. And then the industry changes. Again, you're going to see some really, really exciting things that come down the line as far as brand refresh and some new product and telling our story a little bit more and on our social media and having that competitive advantage, because our competitive advantage is we are authentic. We are who we are. We are Native American Natural Foods from the land. We're grassroots. We know what we're doing. We're using a traditional recipe that we've been using for thousands of years. So we're, it's the perfect food, I feel. I'm a little biased, but it's the perfect food. So that's what we're going to get. Now, some of the investors, I'll quick talk about the investors before we go to the next slide, just to give you that, because I know that's on the forefront. We have Candide, which is the lead, which was the donor asset that the donor advisory fund for Libra Foundation. We've had some other partners, so it's a very finessed investment deal, which you didn't really see in the announcement as much, but between that, we have Swift Foundation has come on. They've been a long-term partners of ours. So not only did they invest in the beginning, they're investing in the second one. Clearinghouse CDFI, obviously, they've been a long-term partner of ours, Doug and Andy. I think Andy's on here. So they all not only come in at the beginning and throughout this whole time, they've actually, come into this round. So through that, most of the investors I'm talking about are impact, social-driven investors. The other part that we did too is bring in partners. Nyman Ranch is one of our technical advisory partners and operational partners. So what they did was come in as industry experts, because they've walked our shoes and been against competition that have driven the business down, and then they built back up. So that's what they're in here for, was so they are actually coming in. There's no money involved on that. It's all technical advisory and that operational. So marketing, media, sales, advice, any spot that we need that assistance, they're coming in with their team. So we do have that, along with some other partners that are, helping on the social media side on there. So it's a really finesse deal, and it's what we had to create because of that lack of access to capital in Indian country, what a brand really had to do, and all the partners we had to bring in to in order for us to succeed. So we'll go to the next slide. I know that took a little longer, and I apologize, you guys can kind of really hear that, the investor side of it. So we had not only money, we have in-kind donations, and we have technical assistance. So it was more than just a monetary transaction. So what we're doing here is creating an actual food system. So Native American Natural Foods is the brand, and Tanka Bar, Native American Natural Foods is the marketing and the brand and the value-added product that's getting to the consumers. We also have a couple other entities that have the same goal, which is Tanka Fund and Tanka Resilient Ag. And all our goals are the same: returning the buffalo to the lands, lives, and economies of our people. So the Tanka Fund is a nonprofit that supports the return of the bison, and those donations go directly to our producers for infrastructure, technical assistance, things that they're needing there. Native American Natural Foods is the marketing arm of that. And then Tanka Resilient Ag will be the collective of the producers that have been supported through the fund. And as they bring that forward, we're providing that technical assistance, and then they can enter this value-added system, and Native American Natural Foods would secure that supply chain. So what we're creating is opportunity for our producers for access to land, access to capital, and access to technical assistance so they can put the bison on the land. So that's on a high level overview of the system that we're creating. And like I said, this is just the first step, but I wanted to show you there's many opportunities to support this system throughout Tanka Bar and Native American Natural Foods through these entities, and bringing that producer back into this value-added supply chain. I did a few questions I had for you guys, or just kind of challenges, was what is the best way for regenerative ag? We need regenerative capital. It takes a long time to raise buffalo. It takes a long time to bring those grasslands back, and the soil and the animals. So, where's that dedicated regenerative money? What are the costs of those funds and the time horizons on those type of events? Because we do have some unique things that in this investment. And also, how do you get there when you have no set assets? We don't have a plant and things such as that. The animals are always rotating in and out. So you have variable assets as we're building this. So those were a couple of challenges and some questions that I had for everybody that's out there, and kind of what they're seeing. So that's where I'm going to leave it. I really appreciate it. I'm really excited. I can talk more about the investment, but I'll leave that for the Q&A side of it. And I didn't want to take up too much more time there. So then that way people can ask more questions.
Great. Well, thank you for sharing that, Don. It's great to see a successful worldwide Native American brand, and we're happy to have you join us. Now I'd like to pause to see if there are any questions from the group. And well, one question that I had is as we as Native CDFIs advocate for increasing resources and access to capital in ways like increasing the Native American CDFI Assistance Fund, which is a fund at the Treasury that supports a lot of Native CDFIs. How many people are you employing out in Pine Ridge? And I guess because the better we can make the argument that Native businesses are really making this difference, but we need this capital, that will help us.
Yeah, currently Native American Natural Foods and we have 4 employees from Pine Ridge, and we had a couple that did move off into Rapid City, but they still commute back and forth. At one point during the peak, we did have 15, just to be transparent to everybody, and with the competition and what had happened in these last few years, we have had to let some of those people go. But now that we're back, through our momentum, we got great plan here in our sales and the investment and new partners. I'm so excited about that. We'll be looking at employing more of those throughout the future as we're going.
Great. So I'm going to read a question from Kathy Berry. And Kathy says, would you be interested in, we would be interested in hearing more about the capital structure. Since it's a 501c3, how do you handle investments?
Actually, Native American Natural Foods, sorry, these are all 3 separate entities. So Native American Natural Foods is a for-profit. And so the investment was equity investment in Native American Natural Foods. And the nonprofit takes foundation and direct donations from consumers and re-grants those to those consumers. And Tanka Resilient Ag will either be a co-op or an LLC. It's in its infancy stages right now, and we'll be looking in the next 6 to 12 months there to really have that going and up and running there.
Great. And yet the Tanka, I guess the Tanka Fund, the 501c3, their board includes one of our previous guests, Zach Ducheneau. So,
yes, he's our board chair. So we're really excited. So we have 4 board members, him, myself, Mark Tilson, and then Nick Hernandez of Makoche, who is actually building a chicken food system and local food hub in his area too on the Pine Ridge Reservation.
So at the present time, is Native American Natural Foods actually raising money, or did you just complete the raise? I missed a little bit of your presentation.
Right. So we actually are just a little bit short on our raise. It's actually open. We're doing several closes throughout this one round. So okay. We have another close coming up, and then there is a small amount that still needs to be raised for the equity. We would love that last part of it to be a Native American company come in on that investment. So if anybody has questions, just reach out to me and I'd be happy to speak with you.
Thank you.
Oh, and I think Andy, I did want to talk about some of our frontline stuff. We were, because Native American Natural Foods is who we are, we were in the unique position with COVID and everything that happened, and we're able to continue our investment, but also continue to get food to the front lines. Because we're a shelf-stable product and high protein and healthy product, we were able actually to get this food out. So we've sent over 3 pallets to Navajo Nation, and that was actually part of this food system that you're seeing. So the nonprofit was able to secure the funds. I was able to provide the product, and we were able to send that directly to the front lines there. We also did, some with 8th generation or 7th gen, did some food also. So we were able to get several, about a pallet to them, and also tons of product down into Pine Ridge too during this for the need. So just to let you know, we do have that shelf stable. It does, it doesn't need to be refrigerated or frozen. So we were able to capture and get this food out to our people on the front lines.
That's great news in helping our people. Well, I think we as supporters entrepreneurship and businesses in Indian country, we should also buy more Tanka bars. And
Yes, I'd love to see Tanka Bar more around. Anybody ever needs anything, reach out to me. Anything, I can send you pricing sheets, samples. We'd love to see it more out there. A lot of people know about us, but it's really, you know, when I'm going into some of these places, it's not sitting there, and just reach out. We'd love to have, you know, get the product into as many mouths as possible.
All right, great. Well, let's, I'll open it up for any other thoughts or questions.
I just want to say thank you, because I do use the Tanka Bar product, and I order through Amazon to get here in Anchorage, and they are wonderful to pack in your purse, your backpack, especially for, you know, me traveling around rural Alaska at times. The size, the protein punch, I mean, everything you talk about, it's a great fit to take with you and to have handy, because, you know, when you're sitting in airports or delayed in rural communities after hours with no grocery stores, it's perfect.
Thank you, Cindy. Thank you. I appreciate it. I appreciate the support.
Well, great. Well, thank you, Don. I'll see if our chairman, Pete Upton, has anything to say, and then we'll keep moving.
You know, I think the, like Don was mentioning there, just the being a native product and the culture that it represents. Even with my kids, I have 6 kids, and they've all have sworn by the Tanka Bar, and it's kind of crazy when they go to eat it or purchase it or whatever, what have you. There's a great sense of pride there. So, you know, your product is more than nutritious. It's also, I think it really promotes Native American culture and a lot of pride. So glad you're on, and I'm glad you've been successful with the continuance during this time of COVID. So thank you, Don.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Tell your children thank you. We love that.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, Don. It's always good to have folks from South Dakota on as well, and really a kind of a place where the Native CDFI movement has really flourished. So great.
Thank you.
All right. Well, I'm going to make sure I buy some Tanka bars today. So, all right. Well, thanks, Don. And if folks have questions for you, can we share your email address or?
Yep, absolutely. So
Okay.
it's, and I'll put it in the chat here, and anytime anybody can reach out. Thank.
All right, great. Well, thanks. Awesome.
Thank you.
Awesome. Great. Well, there we go. And now it's my pleasure to introduce one of our featured member this week. Our featured member this week is Cindy Mittlestadt, and Cindy serves as the fund manager for the Bristol Bay Development Fund. And they are a up-and-coming CDFI, but she's not new to the CDFI industry. She's managed CDFI in Alaska and managed $14 million of native CDFI funds focusing on home ownership, neighborhood revitalization, and she's worked to get NMLS registry and outcomes in the state of Alaska. So I'm also fortunate to work with Cindy quite a bit. She serves as the secretary for the Native CDFI network. And actually I need to give Cindy authorization to share her PowerPoint. So I'm going to pause really quickly there and allow you to do that. And, oh, sorry. Okay, that might work, sorry. And Cindy's joined by Nicholas Gutenberg, who's a law student doing an internship with, I guess, externship with BBDF this summer. And he is studying at University of New Mexico Law School. And I think it's a great example of that Native CDFIs not only provided the direct service of access to capital in their communities, but they also reach back and reach out to up and coming newcomers and also provide employment options for people in rural places that otherwise don't have a lot of options. So I think that's great news. And so thank you for joining us, Cindy. So can you tell us a bit about Bristol Bay Development Fund and how you joined BBDF and joined the CDFI movement, and also what you all have been up to in during COVID and in response. And I think you guys have an exciting partnership to announce too.
Sure. So perhaps what I'll do here is I've got a prepared PowerPoint presentation for everyone today, and walk you through that. And I think we'll touch on a number of those things that I've shared with Jackson as kind of an outline of the conversation today. So first and foremost, I want to say thank you, because I did see Andy on the line here as well today. During COVID, here in Alaska, many of our lenders were tapped early on in processing PPP loans. And with assistance from Jackson and our peer CDFIs in the lower 48, as we call the lower 48, Clearinghouse CDFI and the Native American Bank proved to be two of the most strategic partners in serving rural Alaska. And I can't express, I guess, the amount of gratitude I have on behalf of our small businesses here in Alaska. So we continue to assist businesses yet that are trickling in, particularly fishermen and some independent contractors. But it's just a genuine heartfelt thanks for all that work, because it was a yeoman's effort to do that, and the alliance that we have here with the Native CDFI network and our CDFI community at large too. So just a big shout out and thanks for that support. So I think Jackson kind of gave you a quick background on myself. I have lived in Alaska since '89. I came from North Dakota just 2 years out of high school, and worked for one of Alaska's largest financial institutions at that time, called National Bank of Alaska. NBA for short was then acquired by Wells Fargo at the Millennium. And then following the 13 years there, I ultimately separated from Wells Fargo and landed at a CDFI. It was just a newly certified Native CDFI here in Alaska. And I had always heard about CDFIs, and here, it was just kind of this kismet that it happened, the karma that my career path would take me. So I was fortunate to work there for 7 years and fully immersed in funding sources and topics, NAHASDA, the ICDBG, EQ2 Capital, obviously the CDFI fund, the NACA resources. Back then we launched an IDA program that is still operating today. So that was, I would say that was just a wonderful exposure to the CDFI sector and all of the fundraising that goes on behind that too. So, and then I ultimately worked for a second Native CDFI too, serving 2 rural and adjoining regions here in Alaska, and that would be the Aleutian and the Aleutian-Pribilof Islands and the Bristol Bay region too. And then ultimately up to 2017, I then migrated here to the Bristol Bay Development Fund. And the Bristol Bay Development Fund is a private equity investment fund serving Bristol Bay region. And the Bristol Bay region is a predominantly rural region here in Alaska. We can access our communities only by plane and goods by barge, just to set the stage. The area is about the size of Ohio in land size. And even between communities, commuter service is required to access other villages within our footprint. So prior to Bristol Bay Development Fund, my experience has been mostly with the, managing revolving loan funds. So the shift to private equity as a form of patient investing intrigued me, and offers the challenge and motivation that I look for in my career. So with that, that kind of gives you the backstory on how I came to BBDF.
Great.
So you've heard a little bit about me. I want to take an opportunity to share the spotlight here with Nick, and he's got to tell you a little bit about himself before I go on much further.
Hello. Oh, I'm not muted. Okay, sorry about that. Greetings. I'll keep this very brief because Cindy's work is so amazing and so much more important. But thank you for having me. I enjoy CDFI and what it does immensely. My name is Nicholas Guttenberg, and I am currently interning under Cindy as a business specialist. And I'm currently entering, as you know, my second year of law school with interests in business and Indian law. So the CDFI network is actually something that might intrigue me in future investments and such like that. I'm also the president of Fox Run Development Co. LLC, and that's a company that specializes in as sort of a think tank for inventions. We recently patented devices in the cybersecurity, industrial, and biochemical fields. And while my internship with Cindy is coming to an end, I'm looking more towards the future, and more specifically my plans for next summer. Hopefully the COVID-19 situation abates and may come to an end next summer. And with that, I have plans to potentially intern as a legal intern in multiple states, including New Mexico, Alaska, Montana, Minnesota, basically any state with that might need a legal intern in the Native network or in Indian law as such. And as such, if anyone has recommendations to areas of practice, maybe related to the CDFI network or law firms that help the CDI network, please feel free to reach out to myself at the email Cindy shows, or Cindy herself, and she'll contact me. And thank you very much again for having me.
Cool.
All right. And before I go on to Jackson, I'm going to just take a moment. I see that Samuel Haratzika is on the line as well. And Samuel is also, correct me if I'm wrong, Sam, performing an internship here in Anchorage as well with First Alaskans. And Samuel has been connected with the Native CDFI community, I think, for just about 6 to 8 months here. And I think we've got some dynamite young professionals turning their attention to the Native CDFI community. So Samuel, thanks for being on the line this morning.
Sam's the man. He came to our annual summit in November. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, glad to be here. Thank you.
Okay. So the mission of Bristol Bay Development Fund is to be a catalyst for in-region business startup, survival, success, and growth through the effective deployment of financial and non-financial capital. The fund was formed in 2014 as one of 2 initiatives to invest in the Bristol Bay region. Bristol Bay Development, or since my arrival in 2017, we have focused on 3 strategic areas: offer a broader range of tiered products, expand our investing approach, and enhance our marketing efforts. So we have built a portfolio of non-financial resources to assist startups with access to business education in advance of seeking a loan or equity investment. And we've launched the new program called Path to Prosperity, which is where I'll spend a significant portion of my time here this morning. But P2P for short is a key component of offering business education and nurturing relationships, but is also that catalyst that we're looking for to create new economic growth in our rural communities. So just a quick slide to give you an overview of the fund parameters. We've got, I would say, quite a bit of flexibility. The fund was seeded with a $5 million allocation through our parent corporation, the Bristol Bay Native Corporation. Bristol Bay Native Corporation is one of the 12 Alaska Native ANCSA corporations, or Alaska Native Claims Settlement Act here in Alaska. So it is one of 12 regional entities. Obviously, it's similar to the triple bottom line, but we're looking for job creation, retention, process improvement, and just advancing infrastructure as well in rural Alaska too. We're looking for an internal rate of return in the mid to low teens, though return is not the most sensitive attribute that we're looking for in transactions. The monetization, liquidity events, dividends, maximum 7 years investment horizon from time of investment, ownership positions, it can vary from minority to sole ownership, and then investment sizing. As I mentioned, one of the things was to expand our investing approach. So we have added a micro equity component to our investment fund. So that allows us to invest in businesses, at the lower level of 1,000 to the upper level of 500,000. I'm kind of a visual person, so this slide provides a visual on how the size of an investment is generally proportionate to the business readiness or maturity attributes that the business suggests. And the purpose I share this is I think it's important to kind of position how Path to Prosperity plays a role in the development of potential or future borrowers. So at each stage of the business development, Bristol Bay Development Fund may recommend or require a commensurate amount of development services. So for example, I think we're pretty familiar with this. Early in a business growth, businesses may need assistance or tools to write a business plan or develop marketing collateral or capability statements to be effective in doing business with government, models to write policies, procedures, etc. So as the business grows in maturity, the type of support it needs changes, and more specialized resources such as cash management tools become an important element in the maturity or the growth. So as I'll discuss shortly, Path to Prosperity is identified as that development component in providing rapid immersion in business knowledge and is a nice complement for businesses. This has been a way for me to work with businesses in articulating what attributes we are looking for proportionate to an investment ask. And it's taken me some time to kind of shift from that operating in a lending environment to really think about and expand the potential that equity investing offers. And I'm nowhere near proficient or skilled in this area. It's each transaction is so new and different, and it's a great opportunity to have kind of like this customized opportunity to work with businesses. So we talk about being a fund that offers both financial and non-financial capital. So I'm going to spend a little bit of time just on the non-financial because this is going to set this up a bit too. One of the things that I think has been an eye-opener for me is that the need or the opportunity that this position offers to nurture relationships. Oftentimes my work is like it's matchmaking or identifying businesses or referrals or government agencies that have skill sets that businesses are looking for. And I always kind of describe it as making warm introductions, that we offer personalized introduction between a business owner and it might be another business owner or an expertise or a representative at a government agency. But I find that it's a significant or a very important component of the business. So I kind of list these out as we make referrals for capacity building resources, building business skill functions, offering access to model language, niche expertise, business advising, just kind of a whole host of opportunities to connect entrepreneurs. We also have, I would call it, a pretty strong entrepreneurial community here, hence the logo around Alaska Startups. We also have an individual here who is serving as the global entrepreneur in residence at our university system too, and his name is Nigel Sharp, but he has also proved a wonderful knowledge asset here in Alaska and with our program. So one of the key tools that we offer for our businesses is we sponsor subscriptions to a cloud-based business planning tool called LivePlan. It's a fabulous tool and I highly recommend it. There's a practitioner component to it, and it allows individuals to develop a plan. They can select from over 200 templates to design their business plan. And then us as practitioners, we have the ability to contribute to a business plan. We can actually write real-time comments, or we can guide the individual with tips or other information to help bolster or strengthen their business plan. We have adopted Live Plan as part of our business plan competition too. So it's just one thing. I know the small business development centers across the US also use this tool, but really, really like it. And then something else that's new and exploring here is in Alaska, a health test bed for innovative enterprises, or Health TIE for short. And what that is a innovation hub. It's in its infancy stages now. I'm serving as an advisor on that, but it's intended to be a hub to solve the wicked problems, we call them here in Alaska, regarding Alaska's healthcare system, specifically the healthcare issues around providing direct care to consumers who are elderly or experience disabilities. And what it is offering is that it's connecting entrepreneurs throughout the US, the world, Alaska, in solving our problems. So we're at this place where we're cataloging problems in Alaska and challenging entrepreneurs to bring those solutions here. We've started with twice monthly calls. We call them open innovation calls. And for a fund like Bristol Bay Development Fund or others that operate in the entrepreneurial landscape, it's also a form of business development and early due diligence, and identifying those opportunities that we might not otherwise know about or connect with. So I really like this concept of designing innovation hubs too. And then obviously through the COVID pandemic too, the fund and our resources here, we've become kind of a navigator of those economic relief resources too. So Path to Prosperity, it is, we formed a partnership with another native CDFI here in Alaska known as Spruce Root Incorporated. And Spruce Root is a native CDFI headquartered in Juneau, Alaska, and serving Southeast. And they have been delivering Path to Prosperity for, I want to say 8 cycles now, about 8 years. And when I arrived at Bristol Bay Development Fund, I had been looking for an opportunity to identify a curriculum and education component for the fund that was adaptable and we could blueprint in the region. And Path to Prosperity fit that model. And the 3 distinct components of this program, one is the boot camp, the second is that it's a competition, and the third is that there is a longer term business coaching that occurs even after the competition. So in the first phase of the boot camp, our first year we hosted was 2019, which is last year. And the boot camp was sponsored. So we selected 10 applicants from a pool of 40 applications. And we hosted a boot camp in Dillingham, Alaska. And we paid for the travel for all of the 10 finalists to travel to Dillingham. And we paid for food, any accommodation that was needed for that person or company owner to enjoy the boot camp. In this year, I've kind of noted where we're making a pivot because of COVID. We're going to have to deliver a boot camp via an online model this year. And this year too, we're going to have to kind of think about what that boot camp looks like, and I kind of call it online fatigue, but how long can individuals enjoy education through an online model as well. So we've built in some additional opportunities, and we're going to break that up a bit this year, and we're still in that design phase for COVID this year. We call on our Alaska startup community to support us in this effort. The boot camp brings in a portfolio of expertise. Last year we were fortunate to have a marketing professional, a legal advisor, a CPA, a human resources professional, our global entrepreneur in residence, all attend the boot camp and offer their expertise and resources and mentoring for all of the business finalists. So the competition itself then, should back up a little bit here. Let me see if I've got the, I don't, okay, so the business plan competition component is the competitive event, and company owners prepare a business plan and compete for prize money. Our competition is designed with 3 awards, if you will. The top 2 winning business plans are awarded $20,000 each, and a third business finalist is awarded up to $10,000 at the conclusion of the competition. The prize money is used for technical assistance to further their goals as identified in the business plan, and to travel in hopefully a non-COVID environment next year to an innovation summit hosted in Juneau, Alaska as well. And then the aftercare component is, I think, what I really liked about Path to Prosperity and what we are doing now. It offers us an opportunity to host quarterly coaching calls after the business competition is complete. So we continue to maintain that relationship with the 3 finalists and follow them through the completion of their award term. So what are we looking for and who is eligible? On screen, I've placed a map of the Bristol Bay region. So you can see that there's 31 communities in our region. And you can see the geographic disposition of these communities as well. Our competition is open to businesses that are based in Bristol Bay, must be for-profit, can be a tribal entity, artists, startups, inventors, existing businesses considering a growth strategy, social ventures, and businesses that are located outside the region, but those businesses must demonstrate a clear or tangible benefit to the residents of Bristol Bay to be eligible to compete. The next 2 slides I'll just go through quickly, but I just wanted to run through the timeline. So we take a very thoughtful and a lengthy timeline purposely, but right now we've launched our 2nd cycle of Path to Prosperity. We are in the process where we are recruiting for concepts, new ideas. The application at this stage is fairly easy or loose. We just want to know about ideas. We want the business owner to think about their revenues and to package that and put that forward. Once we get those applications, a 5-member panel reviews those applications, scores them, and then from that pool, if you will, we whittle that down to the top 10 finalists who will proceed to boot camp. Last year, as our inaugural year, we received 40 applications at this stage. We were overwhelmed and surprised, and I mean, it was fantastic to know that. So by September of this year, we will know who our 10 to 12 business concepts are, and they'll proceed on to the business boot camp. We expect to host that October 28th through November 1st. And then the business finalists will proceed, kind of hunker back down and begin writing their business plan. And then we'll offer 4 micro sessions, if you will, either coaching or additional education as we kind of learn where the business finalists might be struggling for information, or if they just need individualized coaching to get to that place. So from November to February 5th, the business finalists will use that time to write their business plan. And then once those business plans are submitted, another panel of judges reviews those, scores those, and then we begin the process to identify our top 3 business plans. By March, we'll announce our 2nd cycle of business finalists or winners. And then part of what's really neat in the, in the program is that the finalists, while they're at boot camp, they create a 1-minute pitch video. And I wanted to take just 1 minute here and share that with you. This video is going to feature one of our top 2 winning finalists. Alana Hurley and Terry Mann are the co-owners of Bristol Bay Events.
Shemai, I'm Alana. And I'm Terry, and we're the co-owners of Bristol Bay Events, the only company in the region to offer event rentals, event planning, management, and support services, making everything from your next birthday to a trade show possible in the beauty of rural Alaska. We recently got married and with very limited options and had to be resourceful to make our celebration come to life.
Through this and over 15 years of event experience, our business was born to take the stress out of event logistics so people can focus on the moments that matter most. As our region's hub and home to the regional organizations, Dillingham hosts over 45 corporate and organizational events a year. Our population of 2,200 triples in the summer due to the multi-million-dollar fishing, tourism, and outdoor industries. With support from P2P for marketing, we can capitalize on these untapped opportunities while creating experiences for people to connect to Bristol Bay. And from that can grow a dedication to protect the place we love. Make the most of life's unforgettable moments with Bristol Bay Events. Liana.
So to switch gears, maybe I'll take a pause here and just ask if there's any questions or any curiosities at this point.
Well, I'll share something really quickly. So I think you are definitely in an enviable place. We did this poll to see what CDFIs, if they do equity investments, and majority don't do them yet, but they are interested. So I think this is very relevant and interesting.
Oh, I'm reading the comments, great. You know, I also think about, is Don Sherman still on the line? Creating an entrepreneurs panel for our next online boot camp as well. So, you know, if I'm out there to ask for one support, this is our opportunity to include entrepreneurs and other guest talent outside of Alaska at our next online boot camp too. That was something we didn't have the opportunity to do last year, but obviously with an online format, it allows us to expand the network to invite others into our boot camp this year. The one component too I wanted to mention too, the path to prosperity is also based on the triple bottom line concept too. So the concept of people, profit, and planet is a very important component. And when I think about, you know, the Tanka bar and the Native American foods, it's just highly representative of that model, and that's, you know, what we're looking for as well. One of the economic drivers in Bristol Bay is our sockeye or salmon fishery too. So we think about opportunities around food or sustainable resources. You know, we have a high value on that resource. So to touch on a couple things here in Alaska, unrelated necessarily to BBDF, but just a bigger look at Alaska. Some of the resources that were deployed in light of COVID include a permanent fund dividend that our state offers. It's a financial benefit as a result of our oil and gas resources here in Alaska. So every resident in Alaska every year receives what we call a permanent fund dividend. This year it was $992, and typically it's distributed in October. Our governor opted to advance that permanent fund dividend to residents in July this year, identifying that the need and the time was a much more urgent opportunity to do that. Alaska also has a CARES grant program. It's a $260 million fund, if you will. It comes from the state component of the CARES program. Right now, the last numbers I have is that of that $260 million, there is an obligation for $95 million right now which is about 267 applications. It's a significant amount of money, and the deployment has been somewhat slow, and our state has recognized that and is trying to address that. But it's a huge undertaking at this point. And I mention that because later in here I'm going to bring up another topic around Alaska's native CDFI sector. We also have another economic organization working in Southwest Alaska, and that is the Southwest Alaska Municipal Conference. It's a regional economic development organization, and they have just launched a product called Forward, and it is an online tool for businesses and residents to access, and it's intended to be a one-stop shop for all available grants or resources available to a business. So if you go to SWAMC, and their website is swamc.org, it's an opportunity to kind of navigate this and explore this tool. So I just looked at it yesterday, but it's pretty slick. So I point that out as just a resource, but this is kind of something that this organization has rallied around to respond to the need for low cost or no cost resources to support our business community. And then our parent organization, the Bristol Bay Native Corporation, contributed $325,000 to our Bristol Bay communities to support the procurement of PPE, and then 2 food banks as well, to keep that food supply sustainable. If you recall, so everything we do has to be flown out. So if many of us in our urban centers experience a disruption in any one of the food supply chains, you can imagine what that must be like when the further you are away and dependent on air transportation or barge schedule to get those goods. And PPE, obviously, like all communities are experiencing, we had that significant shortage deficiency in the supply chain too. So I wanted to also just add a topic about the NCN regional pod, and we've been supporters of this structure. And here in Alaska, we have a native CDFI sector that has been meeting, I would say, for 5, 6, 7 years informally. So this offers, I think, an opportunity to align with NCN and really organize our regional activities to communicate and be responsive to national needs as well, and to funnel our needs back up to native CDFI. Here in Alaska, our pod, if you will, is likely to be comprised of CDFIs like Alaska Growth Capital, Alaska Bente Capital, Coconut Lending Center, Spruce Root, and then obviously the Bristol Bay Development Fund too. So most recently we met to talk about kind of our activities and response to COVID. But one of the things that we noticed was, obviously with the Alaska CARES grant program, the slow deployment is a concern. But it prompted us to consider, how can we as a pod, if you will, or a group here in Alaska, be more responsive in a crisis? There's no one organization that really has capacity at this time to do this work. So we don't have answers, we just kind of planted the seed. What can we do to strengthen all of our organizations, or what can we do to prepare for another crisis? We're prepared to do advocacy, and that's something, we're good at here, but what can we really do to be responsive? Can we loan ourselves out? Can we do other things? Can we think about developing a platform in the future so that we can respond to high need and capital deployment? So we just kind of planted these seeds, and we've left it at that. But I know that we'll resume that conversation in the near future.
Great.
So with that concludes my presentation. And I just want to say thank you again for everyone listening today, and for all the work that each of you do in your organizations.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Cindy, for sharing. I feel like every one of our native CDFIs is unique. And I met some native CDFIs who say that their organization's a unicorn. I feel like almost all the organizations are unicorns. And definitely learning more about BBDF and their focus, your focus in private equity, I think is really interesting, and hopefully something that we can replicate for those native CDFIs who are interested. I think that'd be great. Yeah. We're just gone over the hour, and I want to. If anybody has any quick questions for Cindy, I'll let you shoot. But I don't hear any. So
I see a comment from Natalie too, and I agree entirely. If there is a way for us to be more uniform or common in our delivery, I would thoroughly enjoy a partnership like that, Natalie. Yeah, great idea.
Yeah, I'd like to reach out to you too, Cindy, on that, because I think that'd be kind of neat.
I missed a lot, but there's a lot there more to share too. So both on the BBDF side, but also on Path to Prosperity. So I had to kind of fast forward that. But the partnership, I want to commend Paul Hackenmuller at Spruce Root, because as part of this pod up here in Alaska, we've known each other for a very long time, and having those relationships in place makes this kind of collaborative even better. So, you know, when I came to BBDF, I've always thought relationships are important, and I stress that with Nicholas too. But you know, once you develop a trust and you have confidence in another organization, and you marry those two together to deliver a program like this, it is fabulous. So just hats off to Spruce Root as well.
Well, great. Well, thank you, Cindy. And I think we're going to have to wrap up now. Pete, so you have any words?
No, I'd like to reach out to Cindy too and get maybe a collaboration going. So I thought that's pretty neat. Yeah. And I thank Don and Cindy for information today. You always learn something. So I have a lot of takeaways today that I'm writing down here. Thank you, Cindy and Don. Yep. Nice to see you, Natalie.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm back. Yeah. Good to see all of you.
Good to see you too, Natalie. All right. Well, with that, we'll keep to our hour, and we'll let folks go. We'll post the video on YouTube, as we've done in the past month and a half. And so if you want to come back and look at these, and then also, feel free to reach out to our members, and Cindy, and great to meet you, Nicholas. Thank you.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you too.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Okay.